Spent one full year treating my vacation calendar like a competition. Every long weekend booked, every gap filled, every available PTO day assigned to a trip. At first, it felt exciting until somewhere in the middle of all that, I realized I was exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the trips. It was the in-between that was the problem. The laundry was piling up. The yard work, it was also piling up. And then came the packing list that I was getting way too tired of double-checking. Hi, I'm Teresa from an acre in the city. I've traveled to all 50 states and over 82% of the National Park Service sites. And I've learned the hardest part of frequent travel usually isn't the trip itself. It's everything that happens between the trips. If you've ever gotten home from one trip, only to immediately start dreading prepping for the next, this video is probably going to feel very familiar. This channel is all about helping people plan more realistically, not just planning exciting trips, but building a travel life that feels sustainable, long-term. Because back-to-back trips sound amazing on paper, but in real life, they can quietly become overwhelming if you don't build systems around them. There's definitely a version of back-to-back trips that look incredible on paper. 2 trips in 1 month, different regions, maximum memories. I totally understand the appeal, especially if you're trying to maximize limited vacation time. The math feels simple. Get home on Sunday, leave again on Thursday. Done. But what that math doesn't account for is the human side of it. Your energy, your home, your brain. Because this gap between trips isn't really downtime. It seems like catch-up time. It's like a compressed sprint with a deadline. You're unpacking from one trip, but mentally preparing for the next, confirming reservations you made 3 months ago, catching up on work, errands, laundry, emails, yard work, all while another departing date is quickly approaching. That buildup is really what starts wearing people down. My worst back-to-back travel experience wasn't because of the weather, or cancellations, or anything dramatic. I gave myself 2 days between a 7-day cruise and a camping trip. I somehow convinced myself that was plenty of time to catch up on everything else in between. It was not plenty of time. The laundry wasn't done. My emails, they were a disaster. I ended up repacking too quickly. I forgot a majority of the stuff I needed for a camping trip. So instead of starting that camping trip in a relaxed feeling, I was a bit stressed out, which aside caught me off guard too, because mentally I treated those trips as separate expenses. But they kind of weren't really separate since they were so close together. It was just one giant travel month. So by the time the second trip started, I was already overspending without even realizing it. Luckily, camping trips aren't too expensive. If you're trying to build smoother, lower stress trips in general, I put together a free guide called the Stress-Free Road Trip Guide. It walks through simple ways to make road trips feel easier and more manageable, especially when you're juggling lots of moving pieces and traveling with others. I'll link that below. There are a few other things that tend to wear people down on back-to-back trips, and almost none of them show up in the itinerary itself. The first is mental fatigue. Trip planning takes real energy, and when trips stack too closely together, your brain never fully decompresses before the next trip needs attention. The second is the repacking cycle. This sounds minor until you're pulling stuff out of the dryer that isn't dry yet at 10 o'clock at night, knowing you have to leave in like 10 hours. The third thing is budget bleed. Rushed decisions between trips, they can add up fast. Forgotten gear, convenience store purchases, extra meals out, things you rebuy because you couldn't find them before you had to leave. And then there's a logistics overlap, reservation deadlines, permits, check-in times, check-out times. Those things, they don't care if you just got home yesterday. And eventually, if you don't have a system in place to manage that, something slips. So what do I do differently now? I have a master packing checklist, not a new one every single trip. It's the same one, just refined over time. So now repacking can take me 20 minutes instead of 2 hours. Sure, that might mean I have lots of socks and underwear, but at least I'm not waiting for laundry to get done. I also keep a small travel essentials bag permanently packed. Chargers, toiletries, backup batteries, the little things that always seem to disappear. And probably the biggest change I made of all, I stopped stacking intense trips together. If one trip is heavy on driving and activity, the next trip, it gets to be slower on purpose. Not as a compromise, as a strategy. Building one full rest day at home between trips might be one of the smartest things I've ever done. Not a planning day, not a catch-up day, a recovery day. If this kind of honest road trip content is helpful to you, hit subscribe. Not jam-packing every trip was a hard pill to swallow at first. You do not have to maximize every free weekend to be someone who travels seriously. I think social media quietly teaches us that every trip needs to look epic, every itinerary packed, every moment optimized. But that's exhausting because frequent travel doesn't require constant intensity. It requires consistency. People that sustain this lifestyle long term usually aren't the ones doing it the most. They're the ones protecting their energy well enough to keep going. And recovery time, it's not wasted time. That's what makes the next trip actually enjoyable. Back-to-back trips can absolutely work. They work the best when the space between them is treated with the same care as the trips themselves. The packing system, the reset days, the slower pacing, those things aren't over-planning. They're what make frequent travel sustainable. And once you start protecting your energy, instead of constantly pushing through exhaustion, travel gets a lot more enjoyable. And now that you know how to manage the time between trips, watch this next video on the hidden cost of trying to see it all. Because sometimes the biggest problem isn't the schedule itself. It's the pressure we put on ourselves to maximize every single trip. Until next time, happy travels.